Yeah, the Premier's buying time. The nurse who's about to put the cannula in your arm has been working non-stop for 18 hours. There are more neck tattoos at the casino than there are at Casuarina.
The Premier's pretty bullish about this border situation.
Yeah, the Premier's buying time. The health system is completely stuffed without COVID. Have a look at these headlines. Now that's just from the last 3 months. We'd be here all night if we went back to the start of the year. And there's another nurses' rally that happened today. So imagine what it'll be like if Delta actually gets into WA. Sydney has 633 new cases. It's not the cases we need to worry about though, it's the hospitalisations. Right now, there are 462 people in New South Wales in hospital with COVID. 77 of them are in ICU. McGowan and Roger Cook know we cannot cope with that many seriously unwell people over here. We're turning away sick kids from Perth Children's Hospital now and pregnant women from King Eddie's.
This just doesn't pass the pub test.
Well, we knew this day would come. We screwed down the health budget so badly. It went from going by 5 or 10% a year down to 1.9%. We knew that meant in real terms it was going backwards. We knew a year ago when the borders were going up that we'd have trouble getting doctors and nurses in from overseas, and we are absolutely reliant on foreign medical staff. We always have been. And we knew that when the iron ore price went berserk, BHP and Rio would start outbidding everyone else, and every nurse that was fed up with being abused by a meth head at Royal Perth would probably take a better job doing something else. It happens every time the resources cycle ticks up. None of this is new. There's 41,000 registered nurses and midwives in WA. About 7,000 aren't practising. That's 1 in 6. Now we're trying to bribe them to come back to work.
Probably going to take more than a few grand.
Well, yeah, you get $3,000, the person you refer gets $3,000. You don't actually get it all up front. It's in drips and drabs. Look, they're not going to come back because they know what they'd be walking back into. All these hospitals are calling code yellows. That's something that we hear about in the media. This is what a code yellow actually is. It's an internal emergency that has the potential to seriously impact a hospital's delivery service or poses a threat to the safety of staff or patients. It now happens so often, it doesn't even make the news. Without the right number of nurses, we have to ask the existing staff to work longer. So the number of people in hospitals doing double shifts is going up.
We got a lot of tired nurses.
If you're in the cardiac ward, how comfortable are you going to be knowing that the nurse who's about to put the cannula in your arm has been working non-stop for 18 hours? And all this stuff's going wrong when there are fewer people in WA than we had a couple of years ago. It's happening when the traditional flu season is almost non-existent because we all washed our hands for a change and stopped coughing all over each other. So McGowan's bolstering the border controls while he works out how to get the system in some kind of order for when the virus does get here, which it will. And he knows it will. And even with 80% of us vaccinated, a lot of people are going to end up in hospital. The WA Health Department will have done that modelling. We don't know the number, but Mark McGowan does. And it's a number that is scary enough for him to want to keep those borders shut.
The Casino Royal Commission has hearings again today. When's the last time you went to Crown?
Years ago. Hideous. It's all geriatrics from St Ives, Murdoch blowing the last of their pension on the gaming machines, or Comancheros pounding Jacks and Cokes at the $5 blackjack tables. There are more neck tattoos at the casino than there are at Casuarina. The Perth Royal Commission is due to report in March. Melbourne will report sooner, I think it's October. They're completely independent of each other, but they are swapping a bit of information. The biggest revelation so far has been about how Crown allowed criminal syndicates to wash their dirty cash using specific gambling accounts. As is so often the case with Royal Commissions though, some other pretty interesting facts have come out of left field. One matter concerned a guy called John Poynton, who most of us know, and another story was about a man called Mick Connolly, who most of us don't. Poynton's described in the media as a veteran dealmaker. He's a very well-connected guy who sat on the board for about 16 years. In 2018, he stepped up to the big leagues and he replaced James Packer on the group's main board in Melbourne. Now, John signed a pact with James under which the millionaire supplied the billionaire with confidential information from those board meetings.
Yeah, but Poynton said he never actually gave away any secrets. That was his testimony.
Yes, that was his testimony. But Poynton's closeness to Packer, a person whose influence over Crown concerned the Royal Commissioners greatly, was the reason Poynton stood down as a director. He was drag kicking and screaming though, and you can actually understand why, because it was a pretty sweet gig. When he was on the Perth board, he was paid 80 grand a year and seemed to do very little. In 2013, the board sat just 4 times. And on the rare occasions John did have to work, he didn't raise much of a sweat. He said he was more of an ambassador than someone who should have been on top of things such as industrial scale money laundering.
Okay, let's talk about Michael Connolly.
Connolly's an interesting cat. He was WA's most senior official overseeing the casino. It was his job to make sure Crown didn't go all Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro from the movie. The Perth Royal Commission found out that Connolly was fishing buddies with 3 of Crown's most senior executives. They all used to go out on Connolly's boat, which he called the Good Ship Compliance. We know about this because the Commission went through all of their emails and they uncovered some stuff that proved that Mick and his 3 mates are just like every other bloke. Complete morons. They made jokes about gender reassignment operations and they took the piss out of each other for being henpecked at home. They called each other girls and they cracked gags about one of them being the topless entertainment on the boat. That kind of stuff. Now, I reckon every woman who read that story probably couldn't believe the appalling blokey language.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is, but I reckon every bloke who read that story probably couldn't believe about how tame those messages were. Blokes are shockers. The casino boys were doing their job by getting close to the regulator. Everyone in private industry does that. It's almost a KPI. It's a problem for the government because Connolly declared his friendship to his boss, and apparently that guy, Barry Sargent, didn't see anything wrong with it. Barry's the chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission. He used to be the director of liquor licensing. He's the Dr. Killjoy of Western Australia. He was the guy who abolished the happy hour. He made it illegal to give away free drinks. He's the fun police. Anyway, at some point, Connolly walks into Sargent's office and says something like, "Boss, is it okay if I forge close and enduring friendships with the people I am meant to be regulating?" And Sargent says, "That's okay." And then Connolly sold one of them his boat. And we wonder why the eastern staters call us the Wild West. They're the ones that should want the hard border. I'm Ben Harvey.